Session 1 of Active Listening Mastery, 15 Practical Lessons for Better Communication. What is active listening? Imagine that someone close to you says, "I've had a difficult day." You hear every word, but while they are speaking, your mind is already preparing advice. You might say, "Don't worry, tomorrow will be better," or "You should just ignore it." Your response may be kind, but did you truly understand what they were trying to tell you? Perhaps they were not asking for advice. Maybe they felt disappointed, overwhelmed, ignored, or uncertain. Maybe they simply wanted someone to understand before offering a solution. This is where many conversations quietly break down. People hear the words, but they miss the meaning behind them. Welcome to Session 1 of Active Listening Mastery, 15 Practical Lessons for Better Communication. In this opening lesson, we will explore one essential question. What is active listening? Active listening is much more than remaining silent while another person speaks. It is the intentional process of giving attention, understanding both words and emotions, checking that you understood correctly, and responding in a way that helps the conversation move forward. Many people believe they are good listeners because they do not interrupt. But silence alone is not active listening. You can sit quietly while your thoughts are somewhere else. You can look directly at someone while planning your response. You can hear every sentence while misunderstanding the person's main concern. Hearing is a physical process. Your ears receive sound and your brain recognizes words. Listening is a deliberate communication skill. It requires attention, interpretation, emotional awareness, and a thoughtful response. Consider a simple workplace example. A manager says to an employee, "The project is behind schedule, and I'm concerned that the team may not have enough support." The employee hears the words, but immediately thinks, "The manager is blaming us." The employee responds defensively, "We have been working very hard. This is not our fault." The conversation becomes tense because the employee reacted to an assumption rather than the complete message. The manager may not have been blaming anyone. The manager may have been expressing concern and opening the door to discuss additional resources. An active listener might respond differently. They could say, "It sounds like you are worried about the deadline and wondering whether the team needs more support. Is that what you mean?" That response does something important. It checks understanding before making a judgment. It also shows the manager that the message was taken seriously. The conversation can now move toward a solution instead of becoming an argument. Active listening begins with attention. When someone is speaking, attention means giving the conversation enough mental space to understand it. This may involve putting your phone away, reducing distractions, and avoiding the urge to do several things at once. However, attention is not only about where your eyes are, it is also about where your mind is. Imagine a student explaining to a friend, "I'm worried that I may not pass this course." The friend nods but is thinking about what to eat for dinner. The friend hears the sentence but does not truly receive the concern. When the student finishes, the friend replies, "You'll probably be fine." The response is quick, but it may feel empty because it does not show understanding. A more active response could be, "You sound really worried. Is there a particular part of the course that is making you feel uncertain?" This response recognizes both the words and the emotion. It invites the student to explain more. It also avoids pretending to know the solution before understanding the problem. This brings us to the second part of active listening, understanding meaning. People do not always say exactly what they mean. Sometimes they use short sentences to express deeper feelings. A family member might say, "You never have time for me." The literal statement sounds like an accusation, but the deeper meaning may be, "I miss spending time with you," or "I feel less important to you." If you respond only to the accusation, you might say, "That is not true. I was with you last weekend." The conversation may quickly become a debate about facts. An active listener looks beneath the surface. You might respond, "It sounds like you have been feeling disconnected from me. Have you been wanting us to spend more time together?" You are not agreeing that you literally never make time. You are trying to understand the feeling behind the statement. This can reduce defensiveness and create space for a more honest conversation. Emotional awareness is another essential part of active listening. Every conversation contains more than information. It may also contain emotions such as excitement, fear, disappointment, frustration, pride, or uncertainty. Suppose a colleague says, "I presented my idea, but nobody asked any questions." The words describe an event, but the tone may reveal embarrassment or disappointment. If you respond only with, "Maybe they understood everything," you may miss the emotional experience. You could instead say, "That sounds discouraging." You put effort into presenting your idea, and the silence may have made you wonder how people received it. You do not have to guess perfectly. Active listening is not mind reading. It is paying attention and checking your understanding with respect. One reason conversations fail is that people often listen only long enough to prepare a reply. They may be waiting for a pause so they can tell their own story, defend themselves, give advice, or prove a point. Imagine that a friend says, "I'm struggling to balance work and family responsibilities." You immediately respond, "That happened to me too. When I had that problem, I worked longer hours and organized everything differently." Your experience may be useful, but you have moved the focus away from your friend before understanding their situation. The conversation has become about your story. A stronger response might be, "That sounds like a lot to carry. What part feels most difficult right now?" After your friend has explained more, you can decide whether your experience is relevant. Active listening does not mean you can never share your thoughts. It means understanding comes before responding. Thoughtful responses are the fourth part of active listening. A useful response may summarize, ask a clarifying question, recognize an emotion, or reflect the main idea. For example, a partner says, "I was upset when you changed our plans without telling me because I had been looking forward to the evening." A defensive response might be, "I had a good reason. You are making this too serious." An active response could be, "You were disappointed because the plans mattered to you, and you felt left out when I changed them without discussing it. I understand why that hurt." Notice that this response does not immediately decide who is right or wrong. It first demonstrates understanding. That does not mean you must agree with every conclusion. You can understand another person's experience while still having a different perspective. This is one of the most valuable lessons in communication. Understanding is not the same as agreeing. You can say, "I understand why you experienced it that way, even though I saw the situation differently." That sentence can protect respect while allowing room for disagreement. Active listening also depends on patience. Some people need time to organize their thoughts. If you interrupt too quickly, finish their sentences, or rush them toward a conclusion, you may prevent them from expressing what matters most. A brief pause can be useful. When someone finishes speaking, you do not always need to respond immediately. A moment of silence can give you time to process the message and give the other person an opportunity to add something important. At the same time, active listening should feel natural rather than mechanical. You do not need to repeat every sentence or use the same phrase in every conversation. The goal is not to perform a technique. The goal is to help the other person feel heard while developing a clearer understanding. You can begin practicing active listening with a simple 4-part process. First, give attention. Put aside distractions and focus on the speaker. Second, understand the message. Listen for the facts, the main concern, and the emotion behind the words. Third, check your understanding. Use a short summary or question, such as, "So you are saying that," or "It sounds like you felt." Fourth, respond thoughtfully. Ask what the person needs, offer support, share your perspective when appropriate, or work together toward a solution. Imagine that a customer says, "I have contacted your company twice, but my problem is still not fixed." A passive response might be, "Please explain the problem again." An active response could be, "You have already spent time contacting us, and the issue is still unresolved. I can understand why that is frustrating. Let me make sure I understand what happened so we can identify the next step." The second response does more than collect information. It recognizes the customer's experience and creates trust. The same process can improve leadership, teamwork, education, friendships, and family relationships. When people feel heard, they are often more willing to explain clearly, cooperate, and consider other perspectives. Active listening does not guarantee that every conversation will be easy. It cannot remove every disagreement. but it can reduce unnecessary misunderstanding and make difficult conversations more respectful and productive. As you begin practicing, do not aim for perfection. Choose one conversation today and focus on understanding before responding. Notice when your mind begins preparing an answer. Return your attention to the speaker. Listen for both the message and the emotion. Then check whether you understood correctly. The central lesson is simple. Hearing words is automatic, but active listening is intentional. It requires attention, understanding, emotional awareness, and a thoughtful response. When people feel genuinely heard, conversations become clearer, relationships become stronger, problems become easier to define, and solutions become easier to find. In the next session, we will explore the first foundation of active listening in greater depth, giving someone your full attention and reducing the distractions that weaken communication. If this lesson helped you see listening in a new way, please like the video, share it with someone who may benefit, and subscribe to the channel for the complete Active Listening Mastery series. Continue to Session 2 and begin turning everyday conversations into opportunities for deeper understanding and better connection.